used in general, the way that a bomb can be dropped lovingly, surgically. See, when you cut someone in surgery, you do it to heal them, right? That's what a surgical strike is. That's what a surgeon does. Cuts the cancer out, leaves the patient alive. But that's not all a surgical strike is, you see. This field within which good and bad appear so clearly to us, or supposed to, I think some of us may be getting a little confused, but in which values are supposed to be so clearly appear to us, may very well have these duplicities built within them. A surgical strike may not be like surgery with Dr. Kildare. It could turn out there could be some resentment and hatred beneath it. There might be. It's possible. Nietzsche is not trying to argue demonstratively or to prove a syllogism, but rather to raise suspicions, to raise the kinds of suspicions that, as I say, I think many of us have when we look at the content of the values that have come up to us, you know, through our traditions. That's what Nietzsche is powerfully and importantly good for. Not to deny, again, not to say all is relative, but to try to remind us of something of the origins of what we call good and bad, right and wrong, and so on. By the way, these values have come out in other contexts. I remember in an earlier war, General Westmoreland saying, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. But it was not an irony. He meant it. I mean, so did the early Christian communities that settled in this country mean it. That for a witch's own good, one had to dunk her repeatedly in water. Now, we've come a long way since then, haven't we? Because now we lock people away in prisons and in institutions, torment them with drugs, lock them up in the most dangerous environments, have more people in prison in this country per capita than any country in the world except South Africa. I don't know. They may be, the new South Africa may be ahead of us. Who knows? But we haven't gotten as far ahead in this regard as we think, and this argument has been updated by people like Michel Foucault. We still have the idea that we would send someone to prison in order to rehabilitate them. Now we're getting to be more honest about that. We're getting a little more barbaric, and for Nietzsche that would be better. That would be a little more honest. We're sending them to prison because we're scared of them and that we know if they go there, really bad things will happen to them and it will ruin their lives and that will make us happy. That's what we should say when we send one to prison. If, you know, to be honest, and as Nietzsche said, in the name of minimal honesty, don't send them to prison and go, oh, that was the best thing for them. You know, you were spanked by your father maybe once. He just beat the hell out of you and you went, that hurt me worse than it did you. And you go, I guess. Reading the text of Nietzsche makes us suspicious of people who do things for our own good. It makes us suspicious of people who love us, you know, in a kind of abstract way, especially. So I didn't want you to think that I had sort of, in my previous lecture, sort of become soft-hearted, so that's why we followed up with the Nietzsche lectures. We don't want any conservatives saying, well, you're not tough-minded enough. So this is sort of a little bit more of the tough-minded part. Just a sort of Christian doctrine of loving everyone, Nietzsche says, does not work. Because love is meaningless without discrimination. In other words, in what way do I honor you to love you if I love everybody else too? See, there are many points like that in Nietzsche that I think are quite challenging and quite interesting. It is absolutely, for Nietzsche, duplicitous to go, I just love everyone. Well, you haven't met everyone. And some of them you're not going to like because they're asses. You're not going to like them. And if you did, the people you really loved ought to be irritated because you'd say, well, I thought you loved me. You love everybody? Well, big deal. I'll see you later. I mean, you bump into me again, you'll still love me, you know. It's like Will Rogers. I never met a man I didn't like. Well, he never met George Bush, you know. So Nietzsche is a wonderful, and all I can do is, because his argument is intricate and powerful, I'm just giving you suggestive bits of it today. But Nietzsche is one of the modern masters of suspicion. the reading of whose books, I think, warns us against some of our, as it were, not prejudices, because it's not fair to call something a prejudice that's so deeply seated, that is so much a part of our civilization and culture. It's not really a prejudice, but it is an eye-opening experience to get, as it were, another look at it, a look at what might be beneath it. And so to get ready for my remarks on Nietzsche today, it was simply enough, as I say, to switch around not enough. I mean, unfortunately, I had to read this stuff before, all this, probably when I was too young. But switch around and hear Oral Roberts discuss how much he loved everybody out in TV land and that 10 big enemies were coming after all of us. Well, he didn't name any of them. It's not very helpful. I mean, if you knew who they were, you could call the cops or something, I guess. Those peace officers that carry weapons, like Patriot missiles, peacekeepers. But to hear Oral and the various morning preachers, and of course in the case of Falwell, I think it's just outstanding, because Falwell always loves his enemies. And the duplicity in it is palpable. And I just think that someone would have to be incredibly naive not to feel it almost. Especially if you've seen him in debate with some leader of, for example, a homosexual group. And he just goes, I love you. Just know that somewhere in there is the desire to inter everyone. More importantly, in the very texts that form the Christian tradition, like Thomas Aquinas, are these frightening moments that look marginal to the main tradition, but I don't think anyone's going to raise their hand and tell me St. Thomas Aquinas is a marginal figure in the history of Christianity. These blinding moments of clarity where we have these people say, the chief pleasure will be to see the torments of the damned. I mean, why will heaven be a lot of fun? Well, we'll be there a long time, and it'll be like a Clive Barker movie. All the people we didn't like will be being torn apart, like in one of those Clive Barker films. And that will be a lot of fun. It'll be an ongoing splatter movie mixed with harp music. It'll be a real gig, a trip. It will be fun. Well, anyway, Nietzsche's discourse would teach us to be a little bit more honest about this, I think. And when we intend to punish or kill people, it would be nice to say we intend to punish or kill them. By nice, I mean not moral. We're in this moral universe where duplicity is built into being virtuous. Still, you see how I said earlier, for the Greeks, telling lies well was sort of openly acknowledged as something clever to do, but that duplicity is still built into the concept of virtue in a way. I mean, we can't really tell the truth even about wars, as you know. We can't really let it all hang out and say, well, we started off just to invade Kuwait and get it back, but now we're really pissed. And we want to kill all those damn Arabs, every one of them, man, that damn Saddam, and any of those other people that are yelling and burning our flag, too. Well, I've been out and around the country, and that's the attitude out there. It's funny. It's sort of the lower you go down the educational scale, the more honest it gets. It's kind of, that's sort of nice. At the university, we have a lot of professors who believe the same thing, who just won't say it that way.